all I will tell you is that, yes, a super cycle is coming because you have a super collapse in the purchasing power of the dollar coming. So if you have the dollar collapse 50%, that's 100% inflation. If you have it collapse 75%, that's 200% inflation. And I mean, to see 50 to 75% drop, that would be my expectation. And I would uh, also like to mention, so people understand this, that when the dollar does collapse in purchasing power, your personal standard of living is going to collapse along with it.
I'm wondering what the main catalyst and drivers are that you're currently watching when it comes to both the gold and the silver space that you think people should be paying attention to.
Let me just kind of go back a bit. The gold rally started in October of last year, and that was when the U.S. basically weaponized the dollar, weaponized the SWIFT system, and said that they were going to basically commandeer 300 plus billion of Russian treasuries. And what that did was you had central banks all over the world, sovereign treasuries all over the world, looking at that and saying, well, wait, if they can do that to Russia, they can do it to us. And what that's done is it kicked off huge buying worldwide from central banks trying to protect themselves, trying to fill their balance sheets up with something that will fill in the losses that are surely going to come from their dollar holdings. So just understand that's what's happened over the last, call it 1 year now. That's the reason for the rally. Uh, as far as what I'm looking at now, I I really think we're going to see in a very short period of time. We're going to get we're in the end game, which is a process. And Russia announced that they're going to be buying other strategic commodities, and top of that list was silver. And I've been on the record for over 10 years now that when this thing finally breaks, it would it would be a failure to deliver in the silver market. It would immediately bleed into the gold market, and you'd see prices go dramatically higher, and that's going to be your loss of confidence. That will be your signal, and investors, central banks, et cetera, worldwide are going to see that type of move as a complete loss of confidence, and that will literally destroy the ability of the Treasury to continue borrowing.
I do want to hone in on the announcement from Russia planning to increase its precious metal reserves. The state fund announcing plans to acquire gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and gemstones. Now, we hear a lot about central banks loading up on gold these days, but Russia seems to really be diversifying its hard assets here. What does this tell you?
It tells me that, well, first off, Russia absolutely understands that gold is the Achilles tendon to the dollar. I mean, you can go back to 2004 and you'll find a picture of Vladimir Putin holding up a 400-ounce bar with a big grin on his face. They've known all along that the Achilles tendon is gold. Uh, and what they're doing by making this announcement, they're putting further pressure on the gold shorts because they're expanding their purchases into, like you said, platinum, palladium, silver, um, and that is going to directly conflict with the shorts in those markets. And those markets are much, much smaller than gold. Silver is probably the smallest. Um, that if they go into the marketplace and say, buy me, pick a number, $50 million worth of silver. Silver is already in a huge deficit. And what they're doing by announcing, and then if they actually do start buying, is they're going to tip the scales, and that will lead directly to a failure to deliver. And that pulls the pants down on the West and shows that the whole thing is a fraud. The BRICS basically has become an escape hatch for countries that are on the dollar system. So it's going to give them an alternative. And BRICS, I mean, in two words, it's growing. There's more and more countries that are becoming part of that, which means there's fewer and fewer countries aligned with the U.S. and the dollar backed or the dollar uh, settlement system. Um, as far as uh, an announcement goes, ISIS, they're definitely going to come out with a communique. There's no doubt about that. My guess is they make an announcement uh, that might further define how they're going to back the new currency and what they're going to back it with. Uh, you may even see percentages. I don't think they're going to go live with it. I mean, if they went live with it, you'd see the Western financial system in chaos, complete tatters. If it's even open, I suspect they will make an announcement defining better what the unit is going to look like. And I would be surprised if they did come out and say this thing's going live.
And what are your thoughts on China's role in this whole situation? Because they have been advocating for getting rid of the US dollar hegemony for many years now. They are encouraging their own citizens to buy gold. They continue to accumulate gold at record levels. How do you see them playing a role moving forward when it comes to a potential new monetary system?
Basically, I mean, you just explained it with your question. They've for years have complained about the U.S. dollar system. I mean, they're going to be a number one, number two player in the BRICS, and obviously calling the shots. So I think that's going to be the role that they play. They do understand that they can't directly confront, and Russia understands this too, that they can't directly confront the U.S. From a financial standpoint simply because those would be fighting words. And I don't think they want war. I think they just want free and fair trade settlement. They just want to do business. Uh, you have to understand the mindset of the Chinese. And I think Vladimir Putin has this same mindset that they know mathematically the U.S. is going to collapse under its own weight. So they don't want to be seen publicly as the cause for the collapse. So that's why uh, they're slowly and methodically pushing the BRICS forward. Don't think they're going to push the U.S. over the edge. It's just going to happen on its own, simply because the math no longer works. When I say math, I'm talking about. I mean, the simplest one is the amount of interest that's paid on the debt. But just look at the whole system. The whole system is, I mean, it's certainly over leveraged, and I do believe that we're if we're not we're extremely close to debt saturation. And if the credit card numbers that were released earlier this week or late last week, if those numbers are correct, it shows you the consumers tapped out. I mean, the whole system is one big debt bomb.
Absolutely. I want to turn to other commodities for a moment outside of the monetary metals. Do you see a bull cycle coming for commodities across the board? Because there is a fairly persistent narrative of a commodity super cycle, a potential rotation out of overvalued tech stocks, the Magnificent Seven, etc., into hard assets in the form of commodities. Are there any other commodities that you're watching that you think present opportunity, whether that's the base metals, uranium, oil and gas? Is there anything on your radar there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't look at, follow, or trade individual commodities. All I will tell you is that yes, a super cycle is coming because you have a super collapse in the purchasing power of the dollar coming. So if you have the dollar collapse 50%, that's 100% inflation. If you have it collapse 75%, that's 200% inflation. And I mean, to see 50 to 75% drop, that would be my expectation. And I would uh, also like to mention, so people understand this, that when the dollar does collapse in purchasing power, your personal standard of living is going to collapse along with it.
Well, I want to talk about, speaking of standard of living collapsing, there's an article you shared from neverhadaboss.com on your site about the state of the American empire. I found it very interesting. Here's a quote. Here's the betting line for the end of the republic. The open border policy, if continued, has a 100% chance of bringing an end to America, but not now. It will take some time. The risk might be greater given that 750,000 illegal felons that have entered the U.S. Next comes the economy, mismanaged by both parties with a betting line of maybe 80% for destroying the nation. It either falls apart in feudal hell or ends in a civil war. What are your thoughts there? Are we truly reaching, you mentioned the end game earlier. Is that the end game of the American empire? How do you expect that to go? Do you expect the US to break off into different nations eventually?
Oh, I think that's a very real possibility. You could see the republic break. You have to understand there's almost no uh, unrest now, if you will, and that's because people come home, they look on their computer or open their mail or whatever, and they see their account balances. And there's many people, and I'm going to use the word complacency or apathy. People are apathetic or complacent simply because they look at their account statements, whether it be outside monies or 401k monies. They look at the value of their house and they say, well, yeah, all of this stuff is really ridiculous, uh, dangerous. It's coming out of Washington, but it doesn't affect me. So I think there's an apathy factor, if you will, that's still at this point holding society together. But if you see 50, 60, 80% drops in markets and the same amount of drops in people's balances in accounts that they hold, and they see that, they live on a house on a street with 20 houses, and all of a sudden 13 of them are up for sale, and they're all, lowering their prices to try to get out. That's where society is going to break. When people get pissed off because it finally affects them directly.
And do you think we'll see a banking crisis emerge at any point? Obviously, it wasn't that long ago that we saw bank failures when it comes to Silicon Valley, um, signature banks. It seems like that's all but forgotten in the manic news cycle that we have now, where the news just moves so quickly. Could we see bank bail-ins? How do you see the current health of the banking sector in the US, and what do you see as a potential for a banking crisis in the country?
Yeah, first thing, I definitely think there's something going on under the surface. And the reason I say this, why did we have a 50 basis point cut? The Fed has never, ever, ever cut 50 basis points outside of some form of crisis. So if everything's good, stock markets are at all-time highs, housing is very close to all-time highs. That's commercial real estate is an exception. I mean, that's down what, 50, 60, even 80 plus percent in some cases. Uh, but my point being, the Fed cut rates a half a point for some reason. And in my opinion, we'll find out, in my opinion, that some reason is something is on fire underneath the surface. And this was a way to put those flames out in the short term. So to answer your question, I mean, this is math at this point. The banking system, without a doubt, is going to come down. I mean, the entire system is going to come down. And you mentioned bail-ins. I'm glad you didn't say bailouts because there won't ever be any bailouts again, I don't think. I fully believe that David Rogers Webb is 100% correct. Everything is footnoted. The laws are in place. We are going to go through the great taking. If you've got assets in the system, those assets are going to be stripped. So it's urgent at this point to get your assets out of the system with no counterparty risk. That way you get to keep your nest egg.